Genetically modified organisms, the ban has been on by the Kenyan government, and of course experts are saying it is the only way to save the country from food insecurity. To discuss that, joining me on set is Dr. Martin Kiogora, a research scientist at the Kenya Agricultural Livestock and Research Organization. Welcome.
Thank you, Betty.
Now, GMOs, it's
Yes.
quite a topic that many have discussed. There are those for it, and there are those against it. Just take us through the GMO journey in Kenya.
The GMO journey starts probably before even I give the one for Kenya, probably the understanding of where we are coming from in terms of genetic modification, I think could be very key, because science progresses. Like if you look at the communication gadgets that we have been using many years ago, you can compare the kind of gadgets we have today.
Right.
Very advanced, what can you do with that gadget? So when you look at the science side, it has been advancing the same, especially with the advancement of chemistry and physics. Scientists in biological sciences have been able to do so many things. So earlier on, the scientists, like I can say in the 18th century, were able to know that there is a mechanism of inheritance, that the parentage that you have for be it an animal, be it a plant, the traits that you have are inherited. And scientists were able now to come and understand that mechanism to the level whereby you can be able to predict or determine even the structures that are involved in that inheritance. So the science now comes in Kenya, probably in the early 90s. I think that's where the conversation starts. Right. Because other countries had already started commercializing biotech or genetically modified crops. In the early 90s, we had the GM tomato that was selling even in Europe. But due to other factors that started in Europe, there was some teams, I can call them organizations, that were able to develop a resistance to the technology. And as a country, in the 1996 there, KARI then, Kenya Agricultural Research Institute, was able to establish a research center, basically now to focus on this new technology of being able to put traits from one organism and you can be able to put it into another. Right. And the science continues, and the governance that was there at that time, we had National Science Council. There was a committee that had been formed to really now govern this new science that has come in. But as we progressed, I think the government now saw it fit to develop a policy. And in 2008 there was a Biosafety Act that was set into place. And in 2009, we had the Biosafety Act to actually come in and regulate this science. So as a country, I can say now we have regulations, we have an act of parliament, we have regulations that have now been developed. Right. And in that act led to formation of what we call the National Biosafety Authority that is now established to be able to govern all the research aspects and also look at post-market or when you place the product into the market, anything that happens beyond there, now that responsibility also falls under the National Biosafety Authority. Right. But the science itself has been quite advancing. We have had the development of various crops. We have had BT maize. I think that is what is quite popular. We have BT cotton. We have also new entrance of the cassava that is resistant to diseases. So in terms of science, as an institution, we are doing well. But in terms of advancing them to the market, I think that's where things are becoming a bit of a challenge. Right.
Before we get into what is preventing us from commercializing, what does the modification of the crops do to the crops? Because the way we plant our maize at home, What happens if I take a variety that has been modified? What's the difference?
The only difference you'll find is there are specific traits. And this, when I say traits, I mean characteristics. Like a genetically modified technique basically comes to offer solution to several challenges. One example is resistant to diseases. The other one is resistant to pests. The other one is developing new tools like vaccines, because currently even what we are using in human basically follows the same production system, using genetic modification to actually give us good vaccines. Then you can be able to improve also the productivity depending on what you want. If you can be able to, you can be able to modify. Like I saw you are talking about fish. Americans have been able to put a gene which is able to enhance growth. So you can have the normal size, and also you can be able to increase in size. That's increasing productivity. So there are several things that the technology comes to offer. And those are the challenges that the farmer is facing today, especially for a farmer who is in the tropics. He is facing challenges to do with climate change, especially. It's becoming more hotter, more drier. And that means you have to develop crops that can be able to thrive within that environment.
Right.
So genetic modification is able to offer you ability even to transfer genes or the traits that are in crops, or in another crop that is thriving in a hotter place, and you can be able to transfer it to a crop. But when you come to now planting, we'll just plant a seed just like any other. The only difference will appear in the manifestation of what you modify it for. If you modify the crop, let's say for insect resistant, it means the variety, let's say of maize, will look exactly like the other one. There is no difference.
Right.
And even characteristics, even in terms of smell, in terms of everything. But the only thing you'll find is the insects are not able to eat that crop. So that's the difference. Just the traits that you are able to actually see, that is after planting.
Right.
If it is disease resistant, like now we have cassava, when you plant in the field, you are able to go and visualize one that has been attacked, let's say by a virus, and the other one that has not been attacked.
Right.
But in terms of characteristics, and that is one of regulatory requirements, that when you do a modification, you should not alter the crop for it to have different characteristics. It should maintain its original characteristics, and what only that should change is only the new traits that you are putting in. If you are putting for disease resistant, let it be resistant to that particular disease.
Okay.
If it's pest, the same. If you're enhancing growth, it should enhance growth but not interfere with anything. If it's an animal, the physiology, the anatomy, everything should remain the same.
Okay. If the genetic modification can solve all these challenges, why is Kenya reluctant to adopt the technology?
There has been a lot of, I can say, misconceptions. There's a lot of untruth that has gone around. There is also some level of legal and policy aspect, and maybe I can expound on them.
Sure.
Like misconceptions, we have heard people say that it causes cancer. Genetically modified crops are the ones that have different colors out there in the market. They don't look like the normal. And those are untrue, because like I've said, when you have a maize that is GM, actually when you go to the field, you can't differentiate. It's only that trait. And things to do with causing cancer is what actually led to the ban, because we had scientists who had done a publication. Right. It's called Sararini, and he had portrayed that if you eat genetically modified maize, you'd get cancer. But his research actually was interrogated, and that was in 2011. The unfortunate thing is the government of the day that time used that information to put in a ban.
Right.
Whereas other countries went differently. The first thing is to interrogate this publication. Is it true or not? And scientists all over the world were able to actually critique his methodology of doing the science. And the publisher actually retracted the paper because they didn't meet the scientific standards, because there are principles that you have to employ when you are doing science. And the other thing that has happened is the EU commissioned several studies to actually confirm what that scientists had done. And the current report we have, and we have scientific publication that peer-reviewed by several scientists all over the world, is those, his first conclusion actually was not right. They went further to interrogate other things even beyond cancer. And they could actually say if an animal eats GM, nothing changes. Even the physiology, even the way mechanism, the way the biochemistry, the way the hormones, they looked more than even the original science was about. And therefore, what we can say is there is no link with any biotech product currently with cancer. And also the WHO is responsible also for keeping inventory of what we call potential carcinogens. So potential carcinogens are known. And things like viruses, we know, because, and that's why we encourage ladies to go for vaccination, because the virus has a tendency of also like triggering things to do with cancer. We have chemicals that we know, chemicals that are carcinogenic. They're able to interfere with your genetic makeup, the DNA. We also have an understanding that if you put somebody under radiation, we have heard about UV, some other radiations, the wavelength is able to interfere with the structure of the DNA, which can lead to cancer. Yeah. And with that level of understanding, we are able to actually look at any potential capability of any organism, I mean any GM crop or animal being able to cause cancer. Because cancer is more or less a mechanism where the cells or your body is not able to regulate is either the production of some chemicals or even the cells. Because the way the body works is you are told the mechanism which is inbuilt is there is a mechanism for you to tell you to start, and that is why there will be a production of a growth hormone. And at some point the body is, the genetic makeup is made such that you can be told to stop. So the hormone that is responsible for your growth stops. So even these other cells, the same. When there is need for something, the body, it manufactures. When it has finished manufacturing, the DNA or the mechanism is told to stop. And cancer in most cases is whereby the cell does the stop mechanism has malfunctioned. So there is continuous, so you now can't control. So, and that's where we can be able now to say conclusively, genetic, whatever we put for genetic modification actually has no potential to cause cancer.
It may not cause cancer, but can you say conclusively that it's safe?
In terms of being conclusive, it's very difficult to say because there is no safe food in the world. Even if you go to all the regulators in the world, they'll tell you there is no safe food. Because food safety has a long span from the agricultural practices to the way it is handled at harvesting, to the way it is handled at packaging, and even at the table, how you handle your utensils. So food safety is quite, you can't pinpoint exact where food safety things can go wrong. But in terms of what we do, in terms of genetic modification, let's say like the trait we are putting for maize. We know we want that maize to produce a certain chemical or a certain product. Let me call it product, not chemical per se, because it's a protein, which when the insects come, when they eat, they don't survive. But we have an understanding that that protein, we normally eat it. If you have eaten things from the soil, if you have eaten carrots, if you have eaten the things you collect from the field, basically you have eaten that protein, because that protein is sourced from a bacteria, which you call Bacillus thuringiensis. That's the BT now abbreviation. And since we have been eating this protein, we know that it doesn't have any harm because of two main reasons. For us as humans, we don't have a receptor for that protein, but the insects have a receptor. And secondly, our gut is acidic. The other one is basic. That means when it is acidic, that protein cannot be active in the system. The other thing that has been confirmed is our enzymes degrade the protein just like any other. And in that, it removes any potential in terms of causing what other people claim to. Things like, say, allergenicity. That's another thing people claim it causes. That is apart from cancer. But scientists have been able to determine even basically what has a potential capability to cause allergy. Because the biochemistry of allergenicity tells you that what causes allergy, especially from food, is that protein most likely will not be broken down. And secondly, it has specific characteristics in terms of its structure. So even before you decide which protein to use, those are some of the aspects that you have to explain to the regulator. That my protein that I'm putting in actually does not has the capability of causing allergy, because it doesn't have any characteristics of potential allergy causing properties. And therefore, those are some of the criteria that is used by the regulators before approving. So you have to prove that it is safe, whatever you are putting in. And to prove it's safe, you require some level of agreed methodology of determining, and that is science. And those ones are normally borrowed from the global regulations. And those ones are developed by Codex Alimentarius Commission. And the Codex Alimentarius Commission is a commission that was formed between WHO and FAO. And therefore, we are sure that if those standards are followed, then at the end we have a product that is safe.
Now, I want us to talk about food security.
Yes.
The connection between BT and food security.
Yes.
Of course, Kenya has been known to have perennial problems of food insecurity. 10 million bags every year of maize deficit. And you know that most of our farmers are smallholder farmers. How will this technology, if adopted, sort out the food insecurity issue? And also, is it viable for smallholder farmers?
Yes, the technology comes to offer a solution. Like we say as scientists, what we are offering is one part of a component of package of many solutions. When you look at the small-scale farmer, there are many challenges within that setup in terms of productivity. Even the choice of the crop or the animal to put in itself is a challenge to this smallholder. And many of them have not learned or have not gotten the concept, especially how to get maximum use of that piece of land. And I've seen some of them having several things in the same 2 acres. You have 2 cows, you have 2 chicken, you have 2 goats, you have 10 chicken running around, you have some garden. When you look at all those, that small scale farmer has nothing to produce that can go actually to the market.
Okay.
So that person becomes busy, but at the end of the day, the productivity is low. If that farmer would have known the best things to do, if it's to keep chicken, just keep good number of chicken. The rest you will buy unga, you will buy the other produce.
Okay.
If it's something to do with your keeping your goats, do the same. If you are deciding to do a crop for that size, then select the best crop that is suited for that area, and you are sure that your acre, you'll maximally get use out of it. But the current system is, the farmer is not well advised, and now we have a level of people being busy with less productivity. But to answer your question straight in terms of what the GM crop brings in, is the challenge, let's say, of use of pesticides. That farmer, once they plant, then they reduce the number of spraying, because control of pests is one of their cost of production. And secondly, they come with hybrid, this GM. That means even the yield is higher. An example I can give is like the BT cotton, which we are about to, if the regulations allow. It has been waiting for 16 years to place into the market. If a farmer used to spray like 13 sprays, you can imagine, with the new crop, they'll only be spraying like 3 times. That means the costs will significantly go down. When you look at the number of seeds they plant currently, because they don't have good variety, they put like almost 10 seeds in a hole, hoping that something will happen at germination. But we are bringing a seed where we are assuring you just put 1 seed and you'll get a harvest.
You're sure, it's a sure bet.
Yes. So the GM is coming some level of dynamics that will significantly change the productivity. And we are hoping the farmer, if he is given, then you'll get best use of it. Yeah, right. You really benefit, because if you reduce the cost of your production, then the farmer benefits, because people get encouraged to farming where they see there is something they can get out of it. But currently the cost of production is quite high.
It's still high.
So we are coming in to bring in some level of reducing its cost of production. And then there is some aspect also of food safety. It has been shown that like crops that have not been eaten by those insects also are not prone to aflatoxin contamination. Yeah. So we are enhancing even food safety, whereas we are being condemned for not giving safe food. So GM presents something that is almost, to a farmer, almost wholesome in terms of productivity and in terms of protection from the stresses, and that is like even the drought. Look at the maize that we intend to give the farmers. Already it's drought tolerant. That is what has been developed, and it is having traits for insect resistance. So you can imagine this farmer will get high productivity because it's a hybrid. You will be able to get something even if there is some level of drought. And then the insects will not eat his crop or their crop, and therefore enhance productivity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, as we wind up this interview, I just want you to give us your parting shot and tell us what is the impact of not adopting this technology. If we were to not adopt it at all, do we have any repercussions we're going to suffer as Kenya?
Yes. I
just mention them in about 30 seconds.
Yeah. Actually, there will be loss, because we are saying we are losing opportunity costs. There are other countries that are growing, America, Canada, Brazil, Japan, China, or India, all those economies, the agriculture are currently thriving because of that technology. Whereas, so there's lots of opportunity. And the next generation, if we don't do something, they'll really blame us. And then, for us as a country, maybe a parting shot is we need to look at how do we harmonize our regulations. because I think that's where things are not right. We have regulations, acts that are contradicting one another, like the one for environment. We have one for biosafety, and you find there is one for public health. All those acts and policies don't seem to speak to one another. And if they can be able to speak, then I think there can be harmony. Because like now we can't proceed with maize, just doing a research trial, because NEMA has said you can proceed. Whereas we have a Biosafety Act and authority, which is regulating the same science and has approved for it to continue.
Okay.
So when you look at the regulations in the Biosafety Act, are quite clear and places the GM where it belongs. When you go to the NEMA regulations, it is placed under high-risk category. Okay. So we are categorized with the nuclear weapon and all those. So when the act and the policies don't speak together, then we find ourselves in the situation we are in.
Okay.
And remember, the officers in those departments are applying the regulations as the way from their way of looking at things.
Okay.
But if we harmonize, I'm sure we can have a way forward.
Okay, harmonizing of regulations is very important.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Dr. Martin, for giving us your time to just discuss matters GMO.
It's my pleasure too, and thank you for hosting us.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
That was Dr. Martin Kiogora. He's a research scientist at the Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization. Well, this interview takes us to another break on Business Insight, but don't go too far, more business news is coming up.